Hello, everyone. Tamara here. Oh my gosh, I am 11 minutes late. I am so sorry. So here's the deal. I was doing or facilitating an innovation jam slash brainstorm session with our Everyday Innovators tribe. And the conversation was so good. And their conversations with each other were so good that it kept me a little bit over. So that's on me for schedule, like not figuring out the schedule. But wow, I got to tell you. So my favorite part of the moment of the session was that in the second breakout, so I put them into Zoom breakout groups, the second breakout, I end all breakouts and it gives like a 60-second kind of this room will close in 60 seconds and nobody came back. They were too busy talking until like they were forced out of it. So that's actually a really good thing. But that's not what I want to talk about today. As you can tell, I'm glowing. I'm excited about the situation. What I actually want to talk about today is you can't be an innovator if you don't know your strengths. So here's the thing about innovation. Innovation is one of those funny things where we say we want to be more innovative. We try to be more innovative, but what often happens? Well, here's what I hear from the thousands of people I talk to across the globe. One of two things happens when we try to be more innovative, or maybe it's one of three. One is it feels hard and exhausting, right? Because we're trying to dust off this skill that we haven't been using, that we've been shutting down, or I like to say we've kind of shoved it in a drawer and allowed it to collect dust. So maybe it feels really hard. The second thing I hear is it feels really frustrating, meaning I try, but the results aren't what I need. I'm still just stuck in incremental. Or the third thing is feel like they're not their team, right? The other people they've asked to innovate are not living up to expectations. And that adds a different layer of frustration of, I was told them to innovate, or I was told to innovate, and I'm not living up to expectation. So there's this feeling of it's exhausting and hard. There's this feeling of frustration that comes with it, and there's this feeling of pressure of I've been told to innovate, but I'm not living up to expectations. So I'm curious, first of all, how many of you out there actually have one of those three of like, okay, I've been told to innovate, and I'm not living up to expectations, or innovation feels really hard and exhausting to me. I'm going to pull up a slide that I want to show you as you answer this question, but I want to know from your view how you think about being an innovator. Is that something that you're like, oh my God, Tamara, I got this? Or you're like, yeah, I'm frustrated, I'm exhausted, I don't know what the deal is, but I feel like I'm not living up to expectations, whatever they are. And I'm going to pull this slide up for us because I want this for us. Let me know which one of those is you. And here's the thing I want to share with you. If that's you, and that's most of the people I talk to, you are not alone. And the challenge we're facing right now is we need to dial up innovation. We have to be more innovative. We have to pivot through the times that we are in. That's not a choice. And let me just tell you, I was having this conversation yesterday actually with a potential client. She's at a chamber of commerce, a large one. And she said to me, we've been struggling with some of our members because what they're saying to me is, well, once 2020 is over, like I'll figure things out. Or once 2020 ends, like I'll get back on track. Or I'm just waiting for the dust to settle. Someone said that to me the other day. I almost lost my mind. And the reality is this world that we live in is a new world and it's here to stay. And I'll give you the flip side to this example of being innovative. I was just listening in my Everyday Innovators tribe when we were doing this facilitated brainstorm session, which I could not get enough of it because I love that they didn't come back to the breakout immediately. They like, wait, they were forced back to me. We were talking about Instacart and how Instacart now has become something that a lot of us are using that we would have never considered using before. And we will continue to use because the world is not going to go back to quote unquote normal. And we now have value that we didn't have before. So let's take that to a personal level. Here you are. You've got to pivot. You've got to adjust. You've got to adapt. Basically, you have to innovate your way out of this, through this to a stronger place. Yet, it's frustrating. It's exhausting. It's hard. So I want to share with you my screen because I want to show you. Let me pull it up. Screen one. Okay. I want to show you something. And this is kind of the premise of this burst is you can't innovate unless you know your strengths. So I've spent 25 years in innovation, doing research, real world experience, working with leaders and teams across the globe, digging into the neuroscience and the behavior psychology of it. And what I discovered is that being innovative is universal. We actually all have the ability to do it. However, how we innovate is unique to each of us. And this is why this matters so much. Because when we understand how we innovate, we understand how to do it more naturally. So yeah, I can go back a slide. Let me go back for a second. Hold on. Please hold. Okay. Someone wanted to take a screenshot of all of them. So what I discovered is that there's 9 triggers or styles of innovation. In fact, I like to call them triggers because they're how you naturally innovate. They pull levers in your brain that unlock innovation. And when we tap into the ones that are our power play, we all have 2 that make up our unique everyday innovator style. These are our wellspring of innovation. This is how we perform at our peak. This is how we get into the zone. When we understand and tap into that pivoting, that adjusting, that innovating becomes a heck of a lot easier because you're doing it in a way that works for you. And part of the reason why it feels so frustrating, exhausting, hard, like under pressure, is because most of the time we try to tackle innovation in a way that actually doesn't work for us. So we're actually going into battle without even meaning to. We're battling innovation all the time. And that's why it feels that way. And what I've discovered in the tens of thousands of people who have taken the IQE and the teams that have taken the IQE is that when they understand this, that innovation flows. It happens more naturally. It happens easier. You stop going into battles, kind of like I never get the directions right, but instead of having a tailwind, right, which is pushing you, is that right? A headwind, which is pushing you away. You have a tailwind pushing you forward. Basically, I'm not a biker, so as you can tell, basically you put the wind at your back. Oh yeah, Carolyn, I'm going to share this. Thank you for sharing this. Frustrated, right? As an individual contributor, I'm innovating to get things done, but if I share a new concept or idea, it doesn't move to those people who can put it into place. So Carolyn, we talk a lot in the Everyday Innovators Tribe, not just about how to have innovation, which is kind of a little bit of the triggers, but also how to communicate innovation in a way that gets buy-in. And I want to share with you one nugget of wisdom for being brave enough to mention that, because I do think that's half the battle, is getting buy-in. Is when you understand how you innovate, you bring more of it to the table. So can we agree on that first? Yeah? Okay. The second thing I want you to consider is when you understand how other people innovate, you can speak to them in a way that actually gets them to open up to innovation. So this understanding let me go to the next slide, understanding our unique everyday innovator style, which is our 2 power triggers, our wellspring of innovation, and our dormant trigger, so the way we innovate the least, helps us bring out the best in ourselves, and it helps us bring out the best in those around us. So it helps us communicate innovation in a way that gets buy-in. Let me give you, Carolyn and everybody else, an example from my world. And it was so funny because I caught it afterwards and just laughed a little bit at myself. So here's what happened. So this was about a year ago. So my team came to me. I presented my team with a challenge. I said, I want you to come up with some new service offerings for our consulting clients, right? So we do new product development, new service development. We do a lot of strategic retreats and offsites, like all of that, right? I said, but the challenge we have is I feel like we launch these new products for clients, or we help them come up with the products that they're going to launch. And then what, right? What do we do with them next? It's like a one-off, and then we're pounding the pavement again. I said, I want you to create new service offerings that allow us to continue down the path with them, so we can not only build more revenue, but build long-term relationships that really help people from point A to point Z. So I give them this task. They go off for about a month and they do all this research, whatever it is they do. I'm not a micromanager. So my feeling was, as long as they come with the outcome, I'm good. So they come to me, and in the first meeting, they say, Tamara, we've got some ideas for us. We looked at what competitors are doing and what's working for them already. So we've got some proven things. We believe theoretically that these will help us. That was basically what they said. Now, here's the thing, Carolyn, for you to know. I'm an experiential risk taker. That means I innovate in action. I'm all about where the rubber meets the road. I'm a risk taker, so I'm all about leaping forward. Now, as you can imagine, the language they used came to me was about hypothetical, past, doing what other people have done. Well, I shut right down because my everyday innovator style is like, let's go do it and experiment and let's push to the future and be bold. I'm motivated by carving new paths. So the meeting didn't go well. My team went away. They're smarter than I am. They came back a week later with, I think, what was essentially the same ideas with some new language. And they said, so we've been testing this out with our clients. We've talked to a few of them to see what's working for them. And we think this will pave new paths for us. We think this will take us to new directions. I think is what they said. And I was like, huzzah, I'm in, let's do it. So this is not, by the way, about being manipulative. This is about using language that the people on the other side of the table can hear. So Carolyn, just to address that, like it's frustrating because you've got all these ideas, you're being more innovative, but you need the buy-in. There's a lot of methods that we talk about on the tribe. I just wanted to hone in on this because we're talking about the style today. Oh yeah, Mia says, hold on, let me put this up. If you're up till midnight, you taught me to hone in on my unique innovative style. So I'm up till midnight innovating and doing the stoplight method. Oh my God, I love that method. Isn't that the best? And it clearly works for a lot of people because on the session we just did, Mia, a couple other people mentioned it and categorizing it. So even though I hadn't given them that exercise, they were still doing it. Yeah. So let me go back to the me part of this for a second for all of us. When you hone in your unique everyday innovator style, you actually work in a way that works for you and you work smarter and you get into that zone more often. So that sense of frustration and pressure and overwhelm and exhaustion, all those things either completely go away or really minimize because you're working in a way that works for you. I like to think of it this way. If I'm new to going to fitness and I'm going to go to the gym, if I go and get on the Stairmaster, I am not very motivated to go back because I'm not very good. In fact, I'm really bad at it. It's a weakness. That would be in the dormant side for me. But in fact, I trip. So I know some of you are like, why, Tamara? It's just you're climbing stairs, because I trip all over it. But if you ask me to go and get on the rower, my power play, I'm all about it. And I am there and I am consistent and I am committed and I'm getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And actually, oh, by the way, getting stronger and stronger there because I'm focusing on my strengths is going to help me in things like the Stairmaster that I'm not so great at. So hopefully that kind of analogy makes sense to you. When we focus on our strengths, we get stronger. That sounds so obvious, but it's true. When we focus on our strengths, we really hone in, as Mia said, we really dial in our value and our contribution. Part of the challenge that we face is I wish I had one of those. Do you remember those old slapstick hands that you put on the wall and like hope it sticks? That's how we often tackle innovation and our own approach to innovation, not just the ideas, but how we tackle it. The other challenge I see is, so this happened to me years ago. One of my bosses came to me and said, I want more innovation out of you. And I was like, okay. So then I looked at how she innovated and I was like, well, I'll just copy her because how she does it obviously works. And her way of doing it is these long, individual, silent brainstorm sessions with herself with some meditation music. Now, I sound like I'm making fun of it. I'm only making fun of it because it doesn't work for me. But I tried to be like her. And the ideas that I came out of that were super incremental because it didn't work for me. When I understood that I was experiential and risk taker, I flipped it. So you will see me constantly building stuff out, creating PowerPoints with visuals because that's how I think. For me, because I innovate in motion, when I build stuff, I'm able to innovate. I can't innovate in the theoretical and just mull it over in my head. It doesn't work for me because I'm an experiential risk taker. Now, for someone who's an instinctual, who's connecting the dots and seeing the circuitous path where it all comes together, that's great for them. And in fact, it works better for them to explore as many dots as possible and see the patterns and the insights. Not for me. I got to get into those dots and I got to take action and then I can see it and I got to get really uncomfortable. That's when I innovate. Pressure is great for me. Now, pressure can be good for innovation in a lot of ways, but for me, that's actually dialing into my strength. For someone who's an instinctual tweaker, it's going to be different. A tweaker is brilliant at editing and evolving something that already exists. I mean, brilliant. So their way of innovating by taking something that already exists, something tangible, and then building and editing and thinking of things in that way. And I already talked about the instinctual and connecting the dots. So I bring this up because I'm getting a lot of requests from people and I'm having a lot of conversations with people about how they can be more innovative and how they can dial that up in their team. Well, the key to that is this. Let me go back. It's this unique everyday innovator style and recognizing that there is a lot of different ways to innovate. So there are 36 different combinations of just the power triggers. That doesn't even include the dormant side, right? Because I haven't done the math on what that actually means for combinations, but you get the point. The point is a fluid inquisitive is actually different than a fluid collaborative in how they innovate. And when we understand our innovation style, we can bring more of what works for us. And when we understand the people around us, we can communicate to them in a way that has them open up, and we can bring out the best in them. I want to ask you a question before I share the story, because I want to give you a chance to put it in the comment section. How many of you out there feel like you are innovating at your best self, or you feel like you're going into battle every time you have to be innovative, even though you know you've got it in you? We all have it in you. That's science proves that. So I'm just curious, how many of you feel like you are working at your best self, and how many of you are going, actually, tomorrow I think I'm a little bit going into battle with innovation and I need to figure out how to do it in a way that works for me. So I want you to answer that while I'm sharing this story. I just want to tell you that I had an experience years ago now. I wrote very deeply about it in my book because it was a real opener for me about how people innovate and getting people to open up. And the short of it is a team and I were presenting ideas to a big client. All the mucky mucks were in the room and they didn't buy into any of our ideas. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ideas were good. It wasn't the ideas. They didn't buy into it because I didn't spend the time to understand, wrong way, this. I didn't understand the different styles of people in the room to open them up. Now, I made a lot of other mistakes too. It's what led to the language of innovation method and the certain open questions, all this stuff. But at the heart of it, I didn't take a moment to recognize that I needed to understand and bring out the innovation in these people. That was my job as a leader. I was doing it in myself. I realized how I innovate, but I wasn't doing it in the people around me. And what I discovered when I really started getting intentional about this is that when I understood how I innovate and I used my strengths and I leveraged them, I was bringing incredible stuff to the table. And then I was hitting that brick wall, Carolyn, that you're talking about, where the people on the other side are not getting it. I started to be very intentional about not just respecting the uniqueness that everybody brought, but actually leveraging it and understanding that the risk taker tweaker is different than the experiential imaginative and so on. So what I want you to really think about coming away from this everyday innovator, this 10-minute burst. And by the way, I know I sound super crazy passionate about this. It's because I am. I mean, this is our life obsession over here at Launch Street, is to really understand how you innovate so that you can do more of it, so that you can be that rock star innovator and that you can lead a team of rock star innovators and get to all those accomplishments you're trying to get to. So what I want you to take away from this, from my slightly elevated voice, is that you have the ability to innovate inside of you and to get rid of the frustration and the exhaustion and to be that rock star innovator, to be that confident innovator and that strong leader, to get people to listen. The first step is to understand your strengths and how you innovate. You know, there's a lot of personality tests out there and they're all great. I learned something from everything. They're all wonderful. We specifically focused on this because how you innovate is how you add value. How you innovate is how you contribute. How you innovate is how you solve challenges and you unearth new opportunities. And that's what we wanted to give to people. I didn't want people coming up to me anymore and saying, smart innovation is great, but it's not me, because I knew it is you. It's everybody. The science of it shows it. And I've talked about the science before. I'll deal with that one another time. So, okay. So with my passionate voice here, I really want you to think about your style of innovation and if you're really, truly doing it intentionally. Okay. Well, I'm going to put this up here. It's good. Not going to lie. Sometimes it paralyzes me. Then I think about what you always say, quantity over quality, and it becomes easier. Yeah. So Mia, thanks for bringing that up. So here's the thing. For those of you that are new here or are going to watch this later, let me just share this with you. Quantity leads to quality. And very quickly, there was a photographer professor. He had half of his class graded on quality, like the right photo, half of his class graded on quantity, number of photos. And to no surprise, those that focused on quantity actually had the better pictures in the end. Why? Because they were out there experimenting and trying. Quantity gets us to quality. And I'd say that, perfection paralysis is real. The fear of being wrong, the fear of not looking smart, the fear of not getting it right, the desire to get it right out of the gate actually shuts down our own personal ability to innovate. So, you always hear me talk about innovate then analyze. Can't do both at the same time. But I also want you to think about what Mia wrote, which is quantity then quality. I often, let me see if I can show this to you really quickly. I don't have all of it with me. Okay. This is a start of a brainstorm I was doing about how to take some stuff to the next level. As you can see, there's way more on here than I'm ever going to be able to do. But I'm about to go back and circle the 3 that I think are really viable. But if I tried to focus on getting to those 3 first, I would have shut my innovation down. I would have shut those strengths, that experiential risk taker, down. I needed to get to quantity first to get to quality. And I think sometimes in companies, we forget that, particularly when we're working with teams. And I would urge all of you, here's my pro tip to end us with, and I might post about it later. I would urge all of you, when you're in one of those meetings where everybody's trying to get to that right answer, to be the one to raise your hand and say, hey, you know what? I know that if we start with quantity and not judge, we'll get to the quality idea. We'll get to the right idea. So instead of worrying about it being right, how about we worry about getting to 100 options, and then we'll figure out in that what's right. What I've learned is that in the quantity, we get to quality. But if we start trying to get to the right answer, the quality first, we actually shut ourselves down. We forget that. Our teams forget that. Our leaders forget that because they're trying to get to solutions. So sometimes we've got to be the one brave enough to raise our hand and go, hey, looks like we're focused a little too much on quality, the right answer, and we haven't explored the opportunities, the options. How about we start by just taking 15 minutes to brainstorm all the options? All right. Thank you for joining me. So sorry I was late. Like I said, the innovation jam session I just did was rocking, and they were all having so much great conversation that I went a little bit over. So thank you all for being here. As I said in the very beginning of the jam session earlier, is I love Wednesdays because I feel like I've accomplished something, yet I still have several days to accomplish more. And I think that's why Wednesday is actually the best day of the week. I was like, look, Monday, Tuesday, I've already accomplished something. And then, oh my gosh, I have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to keep going. All right. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time.